Hey girl, it's been a minute. It's been a minute, I know. But I'm glad you're here with me. And thank you so much for coming to the Front Burner Podcast. Now, if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, you know that today is a little bit different. And oh gosh, a lot has happened since you're watching this today. My father, if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, hopefully you do, but my father passed away, not unrelated to COVID, but he passed away, oh gosh, about a little over a month and a half ago now. And it's taken me a while to even like come back to social media and all that stuff. And I do also want to thank everybody that has sent their well wishes, cards, text messages, reaching out to me and my family, and it just blessed me so much. So I appreciate all of your love and all of your support during this extremely difficult time. And it was definitely unexpected, and I am still in disbelief sometimes that he's not here, but I know he would want me to keep going, to push forward, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm not ignoring the grieving process, that is for sure. That's why it's taken me a little bit longer to get back on, but I thought I would come on here and just kind of share a little bit about my journey and how things have transpired, and really what that has looked like over the past, 8 weeks now, dealing with loss. And not just my father, but my grandfather also passed a week after my father had passed. So dealing with two losses, and just what that has looked like, because at the end of the day, I always try to be as transparent as possible with my gal pals, my tribe, and we deal with grief too. We deal with loss, as moms, as wives, as sisters, as daughters, as aunties, and everything in between. Being a kick butt entrepreneur or boss mom or whatever you want to call it, life happens, stuff happens, tragedy happens. And I wanted to get on here and really talk about it because you can't be this awesome mompreneur, boss mom, without also going through that as well. So I'm gonna tell you what's been going on, and I'm gonna be real. And I hope that this encourages somebody, that this blesses somebody. Honey, if that is you, I hope that this blesses you. If it does, go ahead and send me a DM. I love your messages, and it'll encourage me for just being able to share with you. So let's go. Hey ladies, welcome to another episode of the Front Burner Podcast, where we help mamas take their dreams, passions, and side hustles off the back burner, put them on the front burner, make money, and manage their households. I'm Nikki Willis, a Christ follower, wife, mom of 3, and an entrepreneur who started with nothing but my kids' toys and turned it into a 6-figure business. I'm a self-proclaimed anti-supermom, and each week I'll challenge you with my stories, tips, hacks, and a little bit of humor to make sure you put yourself on the front burner. Why? Because the world needs what you've got cooking. So honey, this is officially part of your me time regimen. Relax, listen up, and let's get started. So before I get started, I want to shout out Kiva Davis, who sent me this really cute tee, and it says, "My words have power." Okay, and her whole brand is hashtag Year of the Woman, which, honey, in 2020, we definitely need all the trophies, all the awards, because mommies, we have been stepping up like crazy. We have become teachers. We have become, also running our businesses and everything else. So it's definitely the Year of the Woman. And your words do have power. My words have power. That's one of the lessons that I have learned this year. My words have power. And even though this year has been crazy, I refuse to cancel 2020. I don't care how many weeks we've got left. I refuse to cancel 2020 because my words have power. And speaking negatively on anything could kill a blessing in disguise, could kill something that you've got coming up. So I refuse to cancel 2020. I refuse to speak bad, even when I want to, about 2020, because my words have power. And not only do they have power in the negative sense, they have power in the positive sense too. So shout out to you, Kiva Davis. I will have the description and the link where you can get this really cute shirt. And you can rock it out with me. She's got a ton of them. She's got ones that actually do say Year of the Woman, which I love. I think there's like some camo, and I know some of y'all can really rock some camo, so I hope you get that shirt too. But thank you so much, Kiva. Again, the link will be in the description, and yeah, go ahead and get it. Rock it with some jeans, throw some heels with it, make it look cute. Also, listen, if you are not following the Front Burner Tribe, you can go ahead and follow me at Nikki Willis. That's NICCIWILLIS. This is the final episode of the year. Like I said, I'm revamping, I'm relaunching for 2021. If you got some ideas for me, I'd love to get those. Let me know, Mama, what you want to hear for 2021. But this will be the final episode, and the next episodes after this will actually be my top 3 episodes from my first year. Oh my gosh, it's been a whole year. Dang, that went fast. That really did. That went really fast. But thank you so much for joining me this whole year. We've done season 1 and season 2. So we're wrapping up season 2, and we're wrapping up the year in this episode. And like I said, I'm so glad that you are with me. This episode might be slightly emotional. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I can get through it. When I get to like weird parts, my voice gets a little cracky. So just bear with me. Okay. So here we go. So this episode is, like I said, a bit different because I want to be as transparent as possible. And I'm all about sharing my story, even when it's not perfect. Even when, oh gosh, I have so much going on. But it's important for me to share because there are so many women out there that are in my position where you may have started your own business. Maybe you are a couple years in, maybe you are at the idea phase, or anywhere in between. If you want to be a boss, if you want to be a mompreneur, if you've got a dream, if you have something inside of you, you are going to go through certain tragedies in life. There's no ignoring it. There's no getting out of it. There's no getting around it. It's just gonna happen. And it's nothing that you plan for, ever, right? I mean, when we put our plans together, when we put our vision boards together or anything like that, like, you don't save a space for bad things to happen, right? You don't plan a space for, well, I think there'll be a pandemic this year, so I'll put, the picture of a virus on my vision board, right? Like, we don't do that. But life happens and loss happens. And in October, gosh, it was, yes, that long ago. Right now it's December. So October, I got a phone call from my brother telling me that my dad was in the hospital. And we didn't know quite how serious it was or anything. And so I began to, text my dad and see what was going on. I wasn't getting a response back, which was kind of weird. And so, I'm a praying woman. And so I just began to pray and said a prayer and just texted my dad how much I loved him, things like that. And I didn't hear back from him until late Thursday afternoon. Like, it was a Thursday, so late Thursday afternoon. I didn't hear back from him until then. And so, it was kind of strange what he was saying. He was like, I was fighting for my life today. And I was just like, like, what's going on? And he had, expressed that his, oxygen levels were a little low and some other complications. And he had hurt his back a few weeks back. And so when he was going to get his physical therapy, they had found that his oxygen levels were really, really low. And my dad had congestive heart failure from 2 years back. And so anything with, there are specific symptoms that you got to look out for forever, right? And so fast forward, they found out that, there were some things that weren't quite right, so they rushed him to the hospital. So here he is in the hospital, and he texts all of my siblings, which is me, my 2 brothers, and my sister, and tells us how much he loves it. Tells us all how much he loves us, and thanks for praying. I'll text back. Yeah, okay, we love you, Dad. But it was another day, and he was still in there, and they had intubated him. Now, intubated means they stick the whole tube down your throat and everything to help you breathe. And turns out he had an infection in his blood and also pneumonia. So he was fighting against several things. And by then we kind of started to get a little concerned. We were meeting, on Zoom, obviously, as a family, my siblings and I, and, just trying to see what was happening next. The doctors were getting a little bit more concerned, but, my faith was still like, okay, healing, right? So, like 5 days go by. And, the doctors go from, okay, we're positive, we just need to get this pneumonia out of his system, or, out of his lungs and, clear the infection. But his heart was weakening. And so there's that's another concern for us. And so it kind of just started escalating. So about 5 days go by, and, we are now getting updates from the doctors, on a daily basis. Some of it began to get kind of, every few hours we were getting updates. And I'm, obviously here in Vegas, and I was at a women's conference at my church. Shout out to Central Church. I love my church. But I was at a women's conference, and at this point I'm getting, and I sing on the worship team. So I'm like, going in, singing for worship, coming back out to the green room, and, getting phone calls and getting updates about my dad. And that's when I'm like, okay, I know I need to go. It's time for me to go. So I fly out that Thursday. And I get there, Thursday night, get home to my dad's house on Thursday night. And the next day, that Friday morning, I go in and see him, and he's full of tubes. That was probably one of the hardest things I had ever seen, at least at that point. He's full of tubes, all these IVs all over him. And, I held it together at that point, but I knew something was shifting. Something wasn't right. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. It's okay. And so I talked to one of the doctors. Of course, my siblings and I were constantly talking to doctors, but I talked to the cardiologist, and he goes, I talked to the heart surgeons today, and your dad's heart is weakening. His pneumonia hadn't gone away. The blood infection hadn't gone away because of the complications. And he said he's gonna need open heart surgery sooner than later. That's what he kept saying, sooner than later. And I'm like, soon today, soon tomorrow? Like, what are you saying? He said sooner than later. I said, okay. And so after that, things were just a blur for several hours. I mean, I was there at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And by the time, you know, the head cardiologist came in and spoke with me, my brother's on the phone, my dad was getting airlifted to another hospital and headed into open heart surgery. I mean, it was within like a 4-hour time span. Now, this story is not all bad. I won't say that it's all bad. There's some good parts to this story. Because I always, you know, my dad always says, what the devil meant for bad, God turned it around for good. And I say that because I know even in the midst of all this, I know God's hand was on my dad. I know it, and I know his hand was just all over our family. At the time, my dad needed a heart valve replacement. They didn't know if he needed 2, but just in case, they were going to send him to the hospital that had 2. My dad also was in such a critical condition. They said, you know what, we're going to have the lead cardiologist, the lead cardiosurgeon, is that the right word? I don't know. But we're going to have him do the surgery. And number 3, your dad is in such a critical condition, we might need to use a heart and lung machine, which I later found out is a life support machine. But they say we might need to use that just in case. And the lead surgeon that we are electing to do this surgery, he's the one that knows how to hook him up. And there are only 2 of those heart and lung machines in the city. So we're going to airlift him to that specific hospital where all 3 of those things, the valves, the doctor, and the heart and lung machine are there. So they airlift him, and I can remember, I mean, it was a blur. I was there by myself, obviously, because of COVID. And I remember hearing the helicopter. I mean, I went back to his room, like after they had told us all this stuff, and they said, you know, we have to get him on the table this afternoon or he's not gonna make it. And I, you know, rushed up to his room. I collected his things, and at this point, I'm bawling because, you know, I see the air care team come in, and, you know, they're packing him up, you know, and I'm just looking at my daddy, and he's just laying there. He still has the tube down his throat, and all these other tubes, and it was such a surreal sight. And then the air care team said, you want to kiss your daddy goodbye? And I cried all over his little forehead. I cried. But I said, I'll see you later, Daddy. I said, I'll see you later. And so the nurses took me one way, and they took my dad another way. And they walked me out so I can get to my car and everything. And as I'm walking to my car, I can hear the helicopter again, taking my daddy. And the hospital that he was going to took them no more than 15 minutes to get him there. But for me, it was like a 45-minute drive. So I'm driving, but I don't remember getting there. I don't remember getting there. I just remember getting to the OR floor, and just, you know, frantically saying my dad is, you know, my dad's in surgery. He's getting open heart surgery today, and it happened so fast. The registration staff wasn't even updated. That's how fast he was in the OR. And so what was supposed to take 4 to 5 hours was nearly an 8-hour surgery. So I was there at the new hospital from about 1 to 9 o'clock at night. My brother my twin. Y'all know my twin. Yes, the one that said right here, that one. he he made it in. Y'all do not ask me how. I don't know. With all these COVID regulations, there's actually only supposed to be one person in the hospital. How my brother got in there with two black people that look dead on each other sitting in the waiting room. I don't know why neither one of us were kicked out, but we were, which I thought was hilarious. But but it helped because I didn't have to wait by myself, and because that was scary. It's scary when I was in the OR waiting room, and so every time a nurse or a doctor would come in, it would make me jump, and experience that for hour after hour after hour. It just was too much. It was too much. So having him there, we were each other's strength. And again, if you haven't watched he and I, you can watch us on a previous episode that I had him here for. But after 9 o'clock, the OR doctor came in and he said, he just looked at us and said, "Your dad was very sick." And he said, "You'll need to pray. You'll need to pray." But I was just happy that he didn't die on that table, because they did have to replace 2 valves, and they did have to hook him up to the heart and lung machine. So there was nothing but God that gave us more time. It was nothing but God. So we went home that night. There's nothing we could do. We did see him, and oh gosh, he was up to more machines. He was on, the his kidneys had failed, so he was on that dialysis machine, heart and lung ventilator. This is now what I've learned to know as life support. And that was when I knew that we were going to have a long road ahead of us. And I knew at that point my assignment was shifting. So I came in that Saturday, and anybody that knows me knows I love to cut up. So I came in and, introduced myself to the nurses, who would then become literally like family within like 5 days. And, I brought music and, just told him about what's going on. And, I held his hand, I stroked his head, and, I played, music that he absolutely loves. And I sang, and I told him, even though he wasn't awake, I told him to take the tenor part, and I took the alto part. And I just ushered in the presence of the Lord. I knew that was what he would want. And I knew that was my assignment, to just usher in the presence of God, no matter what was going on. Now at that time, I'm like, he's still going to be healed. He will get up from this. He will wake up from this. But I knew at that point that was my assignment, to usher in God's presence no matter what. And that's what I did. And I did that for Saturday. And I'll be honest, Sunday was a little bit rough for me. Just seeing him in that state, that vegetative state, unresponsive. He was at a level 3, they call it, like a medically induced coma. So he couldn't hear, respond. They said he might be able to hear, but not really. The medicine that he was on. So, and so I pushed. That Sunday I pushed. And so I got there probably more like around 12 this time, and or no, 2. It was 2. It was a little bit later. And we watched the Bengals game, and we watched them lose. And I told him, I said, "Dad, I'm not praying for these Bengals. Okay, all my prayers are going to you right now. Okay." So the Bengals lost. Okay, they didn't get my prayers. But I decided to have a party with him, and I played Shaka Khan and Earth, Wind and Fire and the little Gap Band for him. And we sang all his favorite songs, you know. And then we worshiped a little bit more. And, you know, each time I came in, you know, the nurses would tell me no change. And my dad needed change. He needed to get better. He needed to improve, and he didn't. And so Monday I knew was a big day for him, because he had been at that point on life support for 3 days, and you know there were going to be some decisions that needed to be made, and so you know the doctor came in, and I was there, and I was really my faith was there. Promise you it was. And then the OR doctor that did the surgery, and his team, they came in and they shut the door. And that that's when I knew. He said, this isn't gonna be good. And he came in and he shut the door, and he said, well, we tried to turn the heart and lung machine down, just take it down. And he said his heart only could beat at about 5%. And there were other options to, take him other places and put him on, a bigger, a larger life support machine. But, at that point, I kind of knew. And so, I had conversations with my family, with my brothers, and, oh gosh, I didn't, because I was there, I didn't want to, be the person that brought such bad news. And so we said, well, maybe he can make it out. We were still hopeful. And they said, well, we can send him to another hospital out of town, but he would need to respond out of his coma. And so that night, they took him off all his coma medicine. Now, you and I both know, if you have been intubated and have had, open heart surgery, and, you're on a heart and lung machine and all this other stuff, and you got all these IVs in you, you're gonna feel something. You're definitely gonna feel something. And he just never woke up. He never woke up. He was still breathing because he was on the life support. So, the heart and lung machine was pumping his blood. The ventilator was helping him breathe, but he was unresponsive. And they needed him to respond, like to his name and blink his eyes and that whole 9 yards. And he didn't respond. And that night, he had given me a sign that I'll keep to myself. But I knew he was ready to go. I knew it. And I promised him 2 things. I promised him that he was not going to die alone, and that I would continue to just invite the presence of God in that room, just for him, because I know that's what he would have wanted. And so Tuesday went by, and my husband and kids flew in to Cincinnati to be with me. And so that was good. My husband was there, my kids were there, just to be supportive. My husband sat with them on Tuesday, sat with my dad on Tuesday. And Wednesday, we had to make the call to take him off life support that night. And no one can ever prepare you for something like that. And you know, the nurses, they were so sweet because they try to be so, at least mine were. And I will tell you, I told them, and I said, angels wear scrubs. That's what I told them. I said, angels wear scrubs, because they were absolutely incredible. I mean, by the time, you know, at this point, you know, I have been singing worship music for days now, right? And so the night nurses, they would sing with me. My day nurse, she said she couldn't sing, but she loved it anyway. But the night nurses, they sang with me. And I had to ask them, how does this process work? Because who knows that type of process? Like, no one knows the process unless you like research it, unless you're a doctor. You don't know the process of taking someone off life support. And so you say, well, you pick a time. And, you know, I had to talk to my family, my brothers, and I had to choose a time. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. It was such a surreal moment. Such a surreal moment. And so that night, my grandma had gotten there, and they had made all the provisions to allow my family to be there. So, you know, his immediate family, his brother and sister were there. You know, my brother and sister were there. My aunts, uncles, my granny was there. So it's like, there were like 12 of us in that room. And that was a blessing. And we were all able to say goodbye. I promised him that he was not going to die alone. But no one can prepare you for when someone transitions. Never. Never. All I can say is that, and this is what I just keep telling people when I share my story, when I choose to share my story, and obviously I'm choosing to share it with you guys, is that my relationship with God, it just grew exponentially in that moment, because I had never experienced God in a way that was so true and so in its purest form than in that moment. And those moments that I spent with my dad leading up to the time he transitioned, I have never experienced God in such a pure, true way than during that period. And that's all I can say, because it was in the midst of such tragedy that I felt his presence so strongly. Like, does that make sense to you? Like, so, like in the moment where I felt my entire world crumbling, and I'm, you know, crying out to him and just, you know, watching my dad just take his last breath. I have never felt the presence of God so heavy in my life. In my life. And, you know, that's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. And I'm grateful for that, because I know that I would have never experienced God in another way than in that moment right there. Never. And, you know, my dad could have left out of here in so many other ways than what he did. And so I'm grateful for it all. I'm grateful. As y'all may or may not can tell, I am a daddy's girl. I will always be a daddy's girl. Even though he's not here with me, I will always be a daddy's girl. So spending time with him in that way, I'll just never forget it. It was so special to me. It was so special to me. I felt so out of control. And, you know, hey, as boss moms, we like to be in control. This is what it is, right? But I felt so out of control. Actually, not out of control. I felt not in control. I think there's a difference. There's a difference between being out of control versus not in control. When you're not in control, there is a knowing that God is in control. And so that was one of the lessons that I really learned in that moment, that it's okay to not be in control, and that just because you're not in control doesn't mean that you're out of control, right? So that's one of the lessons that I learned. I learned so much during this time. Obviously, another lesson is just to allow yourself to grieve. Now, girl, if you follow me often, like I know you do, you already know I put on boss hat and I was moving. So, you know, once my father passed, it was like work mode for me. And I worked, you know, up until the funeral. For me, you know, my love language is acts of service. So for me, you know, producing, and my twin brother, his is too. Well, that's one of his gifts, but acts of service is huge. So producing a funeral for him was, you know, that was the biggest gift I could give my dad, you know, at that moment, you know, sending him off, his homegoing, right? And I worked myself to the bone. I did. And I knew at that moment I wasn't grieving. And so I chose to grieve when I got home here to Las Vegas. And unfortunately, it pushed me a whole week back because my grandfather, the day after we buried my dad, my grandfather passed. So I had to do it all over again. And so it took a lot longer for me to, you know, be able to get home to a quiet space where I wasn't doing. And, you know, I'm grateful that I was knowledgeable about that. I just wish that, you know, I would have been able to have some quiet time a little bit faster. So that's another thing that I learned. It's okay to grieve. And, but if you can't, it's okay. Like, if you can't do it in that moment, because people around me were like expecting me to do that. And I'm like, at that point, I just had to just flat out explain, I'm going to grieve when I get home. And then people were like, okay, I get it. I'm not going to, you know, sit here and boohoo with you. I can't do it. I can't. Because I'll get up and start, you know, Marthering all around. I'll start serving. I'll start, you know what I mean? I'll get you tissues. I'll start fixing a plate. You need to eat. You crying? You need to eat. I'll start fixing plates, all that stuff. Like, no. So, no, I just began to tell people, listen, I'm going to grieve when I get home. And that's what I did. I got quiet. And, you know, I told my husband that this is what I was going to do. I was going to grieve when I got home. And I told my kids. I'm very open with my kids. So I told them, I'm going to grieve when I get home. And that was helpful. From a business standpoint, I disappeared. I did. I absolutely disappeared. because I do what I do as far as podcasting and, sharing and all this stuff, it wouldn't have been right for me, for myself, if I was, trying to record or, share or, explain to everybody like all this stuff that's going on. I didn't even understand what was going on, right? Like everything was a blur for me, everything. So I did it for myself. I did it for me. Now, I'm not saying that it was right, wrong, and I don't really care. I did it for me. So that's the other thing. Like, do what you need to do for you. If you have experienced loss, if you have gone through, something tragic, do what you need to do for you. You don't owe anybody an explanation. Truly. That was, for me, that's my daddy, right? That was, my relationship with him. That was, my experience that I experienced at the hospitals and all that stuff. I needed to process that on my own without having to worry about, this, let me look at these analytics. How many clicks am I getting here? Hashtags, I did what I needed to do for me. Period, point blank. And if you've experienced loss, do what you need to do for you, sis. I'm telling you. Do what you need to do for you. That stove will still be working when you get there. Okay? It'll still be working when you get there. I think the older I get, the more, my quality of life is so much more important than the hustle and the grind, right? Like, I'd rather be in alignment spiritually, emotionally, physically, than, do the whole hustle and like just hustling all the time, right? There's a time to do that, but then there's a time for yourself. And on top of being a wife, being a mom, taking on all these other responsibilities, you have to do what you need to do for you. So that's what I did. I did what I needed to do for me. Now, I'm glad I got that off my chest. I feel like I needed to get that off my chest. Anyway, so that's my story. We streamed my dad's funeral, so you're more than welcome to go and see it. We had several hundred people that streamed it. My dad was well loved, so that blesses me so much. I spoke on there for a couple minutes, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, I have one thing that I took with me. Wait, I'll go get it. Hold on, I'll show you. Hold on one second. Okay, so this is my show and tell moment. I have one thing that I took with me from him that means the world to me, and that is his heart pillow. Every person that gets open heart surgery gets this pillow because hopefully nobody on here has ever had to go through that, but they gotta crack you open. So for like months, you can't like use your arms and your hands to brace yourself because it'll mess it all up. So they give you a heart pillow, and the doctor signed it and showed me where the two valves were replaced, And this was on his bed after his surgery. So I took it with me, and this was, for me, full of the memories that he and I shared at the hospital. So this is my daddy's pillow. This is my daddy's heart. And it will always be with me. It will always, always, always be with me. So that's my show and tell moment. I am so glad that you joined me today. I got through it with minimal tears. I'll probably get off of this and be like, ah! But that's okay. I can do that. In the words of Tab, because that's my business. But yeah, I'm glad I got to share this with you. And now you know why I was gone for so long. And why I needed to process and why I needed to grieve. And yeah, that's what I decided to do. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen now. I kind of like it. You'll see. Oh, my new announcement. This is why you'll see. Because my book, the Front Burner book, will be coming out in 2021. I guarantee you. And honey, it's going to be so good. You're going to love it. And this next season of the Front Burner podcast, I'll be sharing bits and pieces of that book. So you definitely want to tune in. I'll be starting in January. I don't have the exact date yet, but as soon as I do, I will send it to you. So if you want that email letting you know when I will start my podcast up, head over to my website. Go to nikkywillis.com. Click the subscribe button. I'm gonna do a better job of making sure that subscribe button is a little higher, okay? So you can see it as soon as you get on there, because I want you to subscribe. But go ahead and subscribe. 2021 is going to be an amazing year, okay? It's gonna be outstanding. It's gonna be fantastic. Listen, if you have made it through 2020, okay, nothing can stop you, all right? We have been through pandemics, losses, changes in schools, all that stuff, distance learning, and I think it's still happening, but amen, anyhow. You can get through anything. You can make it through anything, all right? So I will see you guys in 2021. Now remember, I'm still gonna broadcast, but they're gonna be rebroadcast, okay? I'm gonna do my top 3 podcasts from 2020. So if you haven't listened to all of my podcasts, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and listen to all the podcasts from this year, and you tell me which ones that you like. I'm gonna do it based on the listens, okay? So if you have a specific one that you want me to play, send me a DM, send me a message, all right? All right, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. I will see you in 2021, and listen, the year's not over yet, okay? I want you to kill it. I want you to be great. I want you to be awesome, be the best mom boss and wife boss that you can be. There, I said it, so go do it. All right, have a great rest of the year, and I will see you in 2021. January, by the way, all right? So don't go far. Bye.